Anyone have questions? No? All right.
My name is also Ed, and I'm with Conservation Action Plan.
Turning it on helps. So my name is also Caitlin. I'm with Prairie Conservation Action Plan, and we're a close partner with Nature Saskatchewan as well as 30 different partners. We host a Native Prairie speaker series either online or in Saskatchewan communities. So we're really excited after COVID to be able to get back to Saskatchewan communities. Our first presentation this evening will be by Nature Conservancy of Canada. So I'd like to introduce Ashley and Allyson. Ashley Sahulka is currently working for Nature Conservancy of Canada as a Stewardship Coordinator for Southwest Saskatchewan. Has been in this role as of January 2021. And she was born and raised in Saskatchewan, graduated from the University of Regina in 2020, where she obtained a Bachelor of Science Degree in Biology with a concentration in Ecology and Environmental Biology. Ashley first joined NCC as an intern in 2018 and was immediately hooked. Now coming onto her fourth summer, working with Southwest, Ashley's been able to acquaint herself to the unique landscape and wildlife that this area has to offer. Allyson Carrol was born and raised in southern Alberta before moving to Saskatchewan in 2021 and works with NCC's conservation team. Allyson has a passion for wildlife and ecology and has recently completed her degree in ecosystem management at Lethbridge College. This is Allyson's second summer with the NCC and has been focusing her energy in the southwest sub-region of Saskatchewan, which has completely stolen her heart. So with that, I'll pass it over to Ashley and Allyson.
Thank you guys. Yeah, to be called the main event as we were previously is some big shoes to fill, because I don't think we're going to be able to be the rhubarb cake, but yeah, so we're happy to be here. Hello, as was said, we're from the Nature Conservancy of Canada, and we'll be doing a little bit of a national presentation. First of all, a little bit about NCC and what we do, and then we'll be doing it on the last Saskatchewan lizard. And I also added a bit of a bonus feature at the end about the elusive swift fox. So before we start, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 4 territory, which is the homeland of the Cree, Saulteaux, Lakota, Dakota, and Dakota peoples, as well as the homeland of the Métis Nation. There have been many good lives lived here. There's many good lives that live here right now, and I think there will be much more in the future. So, hello, I guess she more or less introduced us, but just to reiterate, my name is Ashley Sahulka. I am the Southwest Stewardship Coordinator for NCC, so I manage most of the land around this area, our Milk River Basin, and Cypress Uplands. And I'll quickly pass it to you.
And I'm still Allyson Carrol. I'm the conservation intern with Ashley here in the Southwest. So we can move forward.
Yeah. Great. So first of all, I'll start us off with what is the Nature Conservancy of Canada. So we are the largest national land conservation organization. Since 1962, we have helped protect approximately 2.8 million acres across the entire country from coast to coast to coast. Our vision is to protect areas of natural diversity for their intrinsic value and for the benefit of the children and for those that are coming after them. We're focused and effective for over 50 years. Actually, 1962, you can do the math quickly, it's our 60th birthday this year. And we have 4 core activities, which are science, securement, stewardship, and engagement. Allyson and I work mostly in stewardship, so we get to do monitoring, the management of land, and sort of the boots on the ground around the area. So when summer rolls around, we kind of really luck out with some pretty cool jobs and get to spend a lot of our time outside in the field, exploring the beautiful province and all of the properties NCC has managed. So the work on our land, NCC, Saskatchewan, or NCC in general, have 2 methods of conserving land, the first being fee simple and the second being an easement. So NCC's fee simple are ones that we hold title on or outright own, and we manage them by doing things like property management plans, grazing management plans, as well as doing health assessments, baseline inventories, and making our conservation action plans generally come to life. Our easements ensure privately owned land stays protected, and they are means of a legal agreement where they sign. Landowners will sign over some of their rights in a promise to keep the land wild and available for nature. So about NCC Saskatchewan in particular. We are divided into 10 natural areas, and we conserve more than 198,000 hectares across the entire province. We hold title on or have fee simple interest on approximately 22,000 hectares of land. So the areas we, or Allyson and I, work in, as well as my colleagues that are sitting at the table over there, are the Missouri Plateau, Milk River Basin, Cypress Uplands, and we have a new one called the Southwest Sandhills. This natural area plan was just completed last year, so we don't do any work in the Sandhills just yet, but I will give a plug that we have an event there on August 13th with Nature Saskatchewan. So if you guys are interested in coming and touring the area, you can come find us or Nature Saskatchewan. We can help you get that arranged. There will be nice tour, some speakers present, and I believe there will be a barbecue as well. So for Southwest Sask in particular, we have 4 fee simple properties, and they are all in the Milk River Basin. So first one, probably most of you have heard of, the Old Man on His Back Ranch, which is 13,000 acres of beautiful, intact native prairie. A lot of special things happen there. There's been a lot of research that goes on, as well as there's a herd of genetically pure plains bison, approximately 100 individuals that roam the land up there. And a very lovely story of Sharon and Peter Butala, who have helped conserve the land before handing it over to Nature Conservancy. And there's the restoration project, and the list can go on and on. Overall, it's a great place for various species at risk, and a very special place. If you've never visited, I recommend it. It's not too far down the road. Another feasible project that Nature Conservancy has in this area is called the Milk River Basin, and it exists between the 2 blocks of Grasslands National Park. It is approximately 3,000 acres, and it is my personal favorite. It is well worth it if you guys are ever in the area to go up there and just climb up straight up those steep hills. The views are incredible, and the landscape is also home to many different species at risk. A newer one of our properties is called Zen Ridge, which is about 20 kilometers west of Consul. It's 482 acres, and last year when we were on it, we actually found some black widows. So if you're ever in the area, don't be sticking your hand down any gopher holes. You might find some unwanted surprises. And the newest addition to our fee symbols down in this area is called Rangeview, which actually exists on a small portion of the Old Man on His Back Plateau. We've been there for the last few days doing some of our baseline work on it, and it is incredible. We found a lot of different sort of rare plants, different species at risk, as well as just the view on top of that plateau. It's breathtaking. Stewards of the land. We believe that it's really a team effort, conservation is. The Indigenous people who were here before us did an excellent job stewarding the land long before you and I were even a thought. Local producers, families, farms, ranchers, governments, non-for-profit companies like NCC and the other ones here also all work towards the common goal of ensuring that the grassland habitat stays intact and stays wild. Meaningful connections with the habitat and protection for all species as working together makes things more successful. Biodiversity and healthy ecosystems are key for economic and natural well-being of the province. It benefits not only humans, but the species at risk, the cattle, and everything else that can call this place home. So why protect water areas? I feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir a little bit here, and I'm sure most of you know that there's not a lot of native prairie left. It's estimated that approximately 20% of intact prairie remains from the original expanse they used to reach. And I've also seen numbers as low as 14 because of ongoing conversion that has happened in the past few years. Again, it was lost to cultivation, which had mostly happened in the early and mid-19th century, but as well, roads and urban development have kind of divided and chopped up the native prairie. And there's not a lot left of it at all. But why protect it? So at NCC, and I'm sure everybody here understand that aside from any human benefit, nature has its own intrinsic value, and it has its right to be here despite of any sort of human use that it may provide. However, there are a lot of human benefits that the prairie contributes to, such as it being a wonderful carbon sink, It's great at storing part of those roots and the soil. The native grassland also secures soil and it can recycle nutrients very effectively. And since it evolved with big herbivores grazing on it, the bison, it makes for excellent grazing habitat for cattle. And I'll hand it over to Allyson for this part.
All right, so talking about actual rare species in the landscape that we have here, there's tons and tons of examples. We probably saw that great slideshow where we're eating dinner with all the different plants and animals that we have. For whatever reason, we're kind of biased in this slide. We've got all birds here. The greater sage-grouse, striped pipit, prairie waterhead shrike, and burrowing owl are just perfect examples of some of the many, can't stress it enough, endangered and species at risk in general in the area. So not only in the RM here, but the entire southwest section of the province is really, really crucial that we protect the landscape for these animals as well as the animals themselves in whatever we can. So there's, again, like I said, lots of different kinds. I could go on and on and on. But the history in the area also makes it a really unique place for these animals too. That's why the biodiversity of them is so large. So I don't know how many of you guys have checked your history, and by history I mean way back. But if you look at all the beautiful rolling hills we have in the area, they were formed by the glaciers and the ice melt of the Laurentian ice melts about 18,000 years ago. So it's kind of crazy to think about what that landscape would have been like that long ago. If you think about when we've been walking around with mammoths and saber-toothed cats, right where we're sitting here right now, it's a little bit different than the nice dinner we just had. If you want to think back farther than that, millions and millions of years ago, we were under oceans, or even when the dinosaurs were roaming, the landscape was incredibly different, but every little step along the way has shaped it to be what it is today. So we're going to go into that a little bit, just because we're kind of leading into reptiles here. So there's been lots of significant reptiles in the area that have been documented, so I'm sure most of you guys have heard of Scott the T-Rex that came out from the East End area, the world's largest Tyrannosaurus Rex. That's pretty cool. That means you guys are up to date kind of with your dinosaur knowledge, or let's say if you can just watch Jurassic Park for kind of too. We've had lots of things like Ankylosaurus, Triceratops, which are all common in the area as well. So yeah, lots of history of reptiles in the area. A few years ago in Grasslands National Park, they actually found a mosasaur, so if you think like the Loch Ness Monster but bigger. You can see the pictures on the left there. They're from the ones that were actually found in the Frenchman River. And that guy was documented back to 75 million years old. And that's, again, just around the corner. So the reptiles have always been here. They live in the area. We have a long history of them. It's kind of sad now. We're down to just a few. We have 9 snakes in the province, 2 turtles, and 1 lizard, which Ashley's going to tell you about in a little bit. But of course, first, the dinosaurs went extinct. I hope you know that by now. Jurassic Park hasn't happened yet. Mostly because of the mass extinctions that we had, and just the slight environmental changes that we've had as well. So even back then, environmental changes made a difference on these animals. So I'll pass it over to Ashley, and she can get into the last Saskatchewan lizard.
And I'm going to say a quick disclaimer before anybody who's really keen on their dinosaurs. We know that the most recent relative to the dinosaurs is most likely actually the birds, but just wanted to point out that we used to have these huge dinosaurs on the landscapes and huge records of fossils and all sorts of reptiles, and now we're kind of down to a handful of snakes, 2 turtles, and this one last lizard, who is the greater shorthorn lizard. So they are found in only one area of Saskatchewan, which is Grasslands National Park, but their range goes all the way down from Mexico up into Canada, Saskatchewan, and a little bit of Alberta also has some pockets. And they get their name from the row of scales projecting on the back of their head, and they'll use these scales as a defense mechanism. So if a snake comes up to them and tries to eat them, the snake will come, bite the lizard on the head, and the lizard will twist its head, ripping the insides of the snake open, killing the snake, also probably in turn killing the lizard. Okay, that's one less lizard-eating snake for his buddies to worry about. They also have another really cool defense mechanism for other sort of predators. So if a bird or a small mammal comes up to them, their blood pressure will actually rise, and they'll shoot blood out of their eyes in hopes of hitting them, or at least startling enough so the lizard can quickly run and find a better hiding spot away from the predator. I believe that actually, I should have grabbed a picture of it, but it was in the slideshow for those who were watching before. The females, just like garter snakes, will give birth to live young, about 10 at a time, although the number greatly varies. And the females are also quite a fair bit bigger than the males, just to account for the rearing of the offspring. Well, they're insectivores, and they love to eat all sorts of ants specifically. So, the coecific status of this is actually special concern. I know they recently got downlisted, so apologize for that. But it is illegal to catch, kill, or disturb them anywhere in Canada. Even if you can find them, I don't know if anybody here has tried to go find them, but they're very difficult to see in amongst the rocks. They're almost perfectly camouflaged in their area that they live. So, yeah. It also makes it quite difficult to get proper population estimates, and there's probably likely instances of greater short-term lizards living outside the Grasslands National Park, but have just gone unnoticed or maybe have been extricated from those areas since of the cultivation that I had mentioned before. They're also, since they're so specific and localized in their areas, it makes them very sensitive to all sorts of changes, weather changes, including things associated with climate change, like droughts and floods, and specifically good winter conditions, which they rely on for their hibernation, and I'll get into that in a minute. Again, they've suffered significantly from a loss of habitat over the last couple hundred, or I guess 100 years, but they also are very sensitive to any sort of recreational activities that go on in the area. The population estimates vary extremely just because of how difficult they're to find. The lowest I've seen is about 12,000 individuals in Canada, but I've also seen estimations about 4 times that. In Saskatchewan, they're about 8,000, but I've seen estimates up to 30,000, 35,000 individual adults. So, like I said before, how they survive the winter, and I kind of just did this thing because I think it's really interesting. When I think about lizards, I think about Florida, Mexico, all those sort of really warm, humid, hot coastal cities. And I don't typically think about Saskatchewan as being home to any lizards, just because they are those cold-blooded ectotherms, so you'd think they would really do well as soon as the snow melts. So, unlike snakes who spend the winter in those hibernaculums well below the frost line, these little guys, they're a little, I don't want to say lazy, but they can't dig as deep as into them, and their habitat, those really crumbly, south-facing slopes, don't really allow for really good opportunity for them to slip under that frost line. Instead, they will burrow into old mammal burrows or dig themselves in 7 to 10 centimeters and then rely almost completely on snowpack as insulation for the winter. So this makes them extremely vulnerable for any sort of like unseasonably warm winters, or if there's a lot of wind, they will expose themselves and they'll unfortunately freeze to death if they are uncovered. And will they have the same fate as the other lizards? Maybe not. There is a pretty good recovery strategy in hopes that we can prevent any sort of untimely extinctions like the dinosaurs. They have that habitat protected with them in Grasslands National Park, and it's a safe haven for them. So this is kind of just a lesson on how conservation works. When you set aside land, the rare species can be protected without any issues. So Allyson's going to talk about something now that ICC has a little bit more of a hand in protecting.
All right, so we have another little elusive creature here. We have the swift fox, which some of you may be more familiar with. It's a little bit bigger. They're not too big. They're actually about 30 centimeters tall, so pretty small for a mammal on the prairies, especially carnivore. These little guys are super, super cute. They're most distinguishable from a red fox by the color of their tail. So these guys will have a black tip on the end of their tail, whereas a red fox will have a white tip. So that's the easiest way to tell them apart in the field. If you see them, please tell us, because like I said, they're adorable when I've seen them. It's really important to conserve their habitat. A lot of organizations and conservationists consider them almost like an umbrella species, so by protecting their habitat, we're protecting a lot of other habitat as well. They're actually one of the fastest mammals we have in North America, running up to 60 kilometers an hour, which is pretty impressive for a carnivore of their size. And they love to prey on all sorts of things, so it's not necessarily that they need certain food items here, but they need the short grass prairies in order to be able to survive. So they love that open and flat prairie habitat. A lot of it actually is really nice in terms of ranching habitat, it kind of overlaps. So with NCC and a lot of these organizations, we love being able to work with landowners and ranchers and find a way to conserve in a way that works for the ranchers as well as conserving the habitat. So again, just kind of going into more about why they need that area. These are specifically den-dwelling foxes, so they will dig around if they have to, but they're kind of lazy and nature kind of takes the easiest route whenever possible. So they love to take over old badger holes or even ground squirrel holes and kind of make them up to their standards. They, again, are about 30 centimeters, and that's about around the height of the grass that they like to kind of stay in. They don't like to go anything taller, so not really tall grass prairies or definitely not shrubs or trees. So this kind of area of the province is perfect for them. They love to eat ground squirrels, but they'll also eat almost anything, including lizards. Don't tell Ashley. The chances of a swift fox eating a short-horned lizard is probably pretty rare, at least that's what it's really like. These guys are greatly endangered due to habitat loss. It's no surprise that most of the species that we have out here, that's the reason that they are endangered. But predation does play a role in that as well, so golden eagles and coyotes. So if you have a lot of coyotes on the line, they're probably not going to see these guys around. Yeah, some great diagram that we have here is kind of showing their size in comparison to what kind of trees and stuff that they need. Road mortality can also be a little bit of an issue. Yes, we like to convert the land, even in those ranching areas where we haven't actually converted the landscape and just cut the cows out, we're still putting roads through that, whether that's tree roads or even just a dirt path. Road mortality is an issue as well. So in terms of population and trends, so these guys are considered threatened. Again, habitat loss is the main issue that we have. Right now, they only take up about 3% of the historical range. So we have this great big map here. You might not even be able to see, but at the very bottom of Saskatchewan and a tiny bit in Alberta, there's this tiny sliver of green. That's the extent of their range in Canada. But we'll take even just that sliver because they were actually extirpated from the country in the 1930s. Following about the 1980s, 1990s, they are actually reintroduced into Canada. In total, there's about a 10 or 15-year range where over 1,000 individuals were reintroduced here. Right now, the population is sitting somewhere between 500 and 700. There's a lot of variability in between all of the populations that have been documented. But even that, again, we'll take what you can get. The fact of the matter is basically just we're still losing habitat as much as we're trying our best. That's the reason that we're still not seeing that full retention of closer to 1,000 individuals. So we actually have been very fortunate at NCC to actually have this list of fox on some of our properties. So the big OMB ranch that actually talked about not too far from here, we've actually had multiple reports of it. Our most recent one was in 2019, actually at the end of the driveway of the Nature Center. So come check it out, you might see this fox. Also our brand new property range that we've been at all week, we have past accounts of them being noticed on the landscape. We didn't see anything when we were out there. Again, we are in the area, the two properties are pretty close together, so we have our fingers crossed that in the next few years we'll have some more in the area as it's now preserved. And then again, other observations just on local ranchers. Some of our neighbors have noticed them throughout the years. We're just really, really excited that hopefully between our work and the other work of other organizations around us, that these animals will be able to thrive here. So it just kind of goes to show it's a great example of how conservation can come back to work, this swift recovery, if you will. I've been waiting all day to say that joke, so don't encourage it if you want to. But if you build it, if you preserve that land, these species will use it. So that's our main goal here, again, finding that balance between making a functional ranching lifestyle and being able to protect the animals. That's one of our number one goals as we create all of our management plans and as we go forward in the work that we do. So again, one last time, for the Nature Conservancy, we just want to stress how important it is to conserve nature. We don't have a lot of it left, as Ashley said, and I'm sure everyone is aware to see it with their own eyes all the time. It's about finding that balance again between being able to support the human race and also being able to support all of these species at risk and being able to support their habitat that they need while also serving our needs. So it's crucial to protect what we have left and just basically make sure that we're benefiting the animals as well, because every single part of them plays a role in the ecosystem. So last but not least, just a big thank you to everyone for coming out. We're really honored to be asked to come up here and talk to you guys today. If you have any questions about either of the species, NCC, the Great Sandhills event that we have coming up, feel free to talk to any of us afterwards. We would love that.